Working out what's in our rivers requires a kind of science done in waders, not just with test tubes in labs.
We'll go into the river bit, the centre section there.
Described as a chemical cocktail of pollutants, it makes for a murky mix that's bad for us and worse for wildlife.
Seeing this here is already an indicator that there's something wrong going further upstream. All this algae mat, that's directly nutrification from the agricultural runoff.
That tells you that it's not
That tells you that it's enriched with fertiliser.
Catching and counting is one of the monthly citizen science checks to monitor water quality at the River Clun in Shropshire. But in some places, you don't need tests to know there's a problem, like at Oak Beck near Harrogate. Normally somewhere for leisurely dog walks, picnics and nature watching. Not so inviting, with dead fish in the water. We don't yet know why. We don't know the cause. What we can say is that these dead fish are a bit like the canary down the coal mine. They tell us that there is something wrong with this water. Not even a fifth of rivers in England meet the target for good ecological standards. The reasons include chemicals from industry, road runoff and leaky septic tanks. The biggest factors, there's the sewage pumped into rivers by water companies and agriculture. The slurry, pesticides, sewage, sludge and fertiliser used on farms. New farming rules in 2018 were meant to cut water pollution from agriculture in England, but since then, legal enforcement powers have barely ever been used. Data we've obtained reveals fewer than 3,000 farm inspections by the Environment Agency in those 4 years. At that rate, checking every farm would take well over a century. Inspectors reported more than 1,300 breaches of the rules, with the number going up each year. But the figures show no prosecutions, with just one farm facing a civil sanction.
They like to lift their tail and deposit what they do in the watercourse. So set a fence back.
It's often charities and conservation groups out visiting farms and working with farmers, which is why this training session is happening.
They're well maintained, downpipes are working, and they're doing rainwater harvesting.
It's organised by the Rivers Trust to train more people to work with more farms. But they have no powers. They don't enforce rules. They say that must be the job of official farm inspectors from the Environment Agency, and they want to see more of them.
We see ourselves almost as the carrot, and you almost need the stick as well. So I think the situation is that you will have some farmers that will be polluting the watercourses knowingly or unknowingly. If advice is not getting through to them to sort something out, then of course there's a role for the Environment Agency to come in and kind of, enforce them and to kind of clear up that pollution.
And in terms of their inspections and enforcement, are they doing enough?
I think sort of recently, particularly in our area, there's a lot of underfunding through government. I think it's really important that we do have them there, we do have them on the ground, and they are seen.
It's clear they're not seen at most farms, even with extra farm inspectors hired by the Environment Agency this year. And back in 2015, less checks, a more hands-off approach, was the stated aim of the then Environment Secretary.
I want to see farmers farming, not form filling. Over the last Parliament, we cut guidance by 80% and we reduced farm inspections by 34,000 every year.
So go on, explain for me, how is it actually helping the rivers?
It helps the rivers through the roots.
Already a convert to the cause, though he admits few farmers would want more inspections. In North Yorkshire, Richard Bramley doesn't just grow wheat for beer and potatoes for crisps.
All those root hairs, they're all trapping nutrients.
So it's like a field of sponge for the stuff that pollutes the rivers, essentially?
Yep, absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's what it is.
Crops are rotated and some fields are sacrificed to grow soil-friendly plants. There are long-term benefits, but it's not cost neutral.
We need the food, and we need to produce the food in a way that has less and less impact. Now that's already happening. Arguably it's not happening quick enough.
Is there a concern that with pressures on the cost of living, with food prices increasing, that this kind of stuff will be seen as something just that can't be afforded?
It's possible on farm. There's an awful lot of, there's price pressure on everybody, but there's price pressure very much on farming as well. We've seen a huge increase in the cost of electricity and fertilisers and fuel and all these things that are needed to produce food.
Back in Clun, the results are in.
0.25 parts per million.
In the spring, levels of some pollutants spiked. Nitrates went up to 100 times the level at the start of the year. The results now show rivers can recover, but without consequences for polluters. The bigger picture, according to Dave, is still a depressing one. So from what you're seeing in terms of the damage that's being done, there's a need for enforcement, is there?
Yes, straightforward. Human nature being how it is, if you can get away with something, you will probably do it without any penalty. So we need agencies who have deep concerns about our waterways, our natural environment, ecology. We need those organisations to have teeth.
Teeth in the form of rules and the power to fine or prosecute rule breakers, according to the Environment Agency, isn't always proportionate. In a statement, they say their staff give advice and work with farmers to reduce waste pollution. 4 years into the new rules, though, pollution remains a problem.